Coming up in This Week in Computer Hardware, Samsung's new 48-layer V-NAND and the first 16TB SSD, Skylake's naked GTX 950 rumors, Galaxy Note 5 launch dates, and don't buy an iPhone till we tell you. All that and more coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 328, recorded August 13th, 2015. Samsung 16TB SSD and Skylake Delidded. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Braintree. If you're working on a mobile app and searching for the right payments API, check out the Braintree V0 SDK. With one simple integration, you get every way to pay. To learn more and try out the sandbox, go to BraintreePayments.com/Twitch. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by iFixit. You can fix it, and iFixit makes it easy with free step-by-step repair guides, high-quality replacement parts, and all the tools you'll need. For $10 off your purchase of $50 or more, go to iFixit.com/Twitch and enter the code TWITCH at checkout. Welcome to Twitch This Week in Computer Hardware, Twitch's weekly show that aims to bring you the most useful, most informative, most engaging, most delightful, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, most sleep-deprived news, commentary, and help. At least in terms of answering questions and bringing you ideas in the entire known universe of computer hardware. Oh my goodness, we have all the stories this week, so let us fire out Mr. Ryan Shrout, lead benchmarking animal at PCPer.com. Hey, man.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. It's good. Excited to be here. Excited not to be trapped somewhere in an airport with no internets. And,
yes, that's always better.
Yeah, it's Orange County, where airport internet goes to die. So Mr. Malventano is sitting a few feet to my left, recovering from, was that the Flash Memory Conference? Flash Memory Summit.
Yeah.
The peak. And pretty much it's become a big event, if not the big event in storage here in the United States. And the big story, the one that actually we kind of led off Techzilla with, 16 terabyte SSDs, the PM1633A from Samsung. This is the largest drive, period. Not just the largest SSD, but the largest drive you can buy or will eventually be able to buy when they ship it. SAS, Enterprise. I expect it to cost no more than a decent used car, a nice, clean, decent used car. And it's using the 48-layer VNAND. If you scroll down on the page, that second screenshot on that page from Samsung, there's a 2U rack that is packing, brace for impact. As of yesterday, it was over 700 terabytes. It is now 768 terabytes, which Samsung described as the JBOF, or just a bunch of flash. No actual server inside that, just a giant collection of drives. That is a ton. That is a ton of storage. And what's really crazy about this, if you take a look at the next story on the list, Burke, so basically 3D VNAND, we're looking at 48-layer VNAND up from 32 layers, 256 gigabyte, that's 32 gigabyte capacity, up from 128 gigabit, 16 gigabyte capacity, 30% reduction in power consumption over 32-layer VNAND. And all I got to say is, where is my 4 terabyte 850 Evo, comma, yo, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Not that I can afford one, but I can smell one coming in the distance.
We assume that's something that's going to occur, right? They're already talking about moving this flash into the 850 Evo. They're just lowering costs at this point to themselves. Hopefully that lower cost trickles down to the consumer as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it's crazy. If you've been thinking about an SSD and you've thought to yourself, well, I'm going to wait till the prices have dropped. Quite frankly, the prices have pretty much dropped. A 500 gigabyte Samsung 850 Evo, 500 gigabytes, SATA 3 is $177 right now. 250 gigabytes for $100. A terabyte drive is down to $360, not even on sale, like just regularly an 850 Evo with 1 terabyte of flash is $360, which is still considerably more expensive than a standard rotating drive, but is pretty freaking cheap. M2 drives are actually down pretty low too, price-wise. But yeah, I'm curious to see how long it takes. Alan, do they expect to have the 48-layer VNAND? Is that going to be next year, 2016? This year? Next month? Wow. Is the 16 terabyte drive going to be next month? TBA on the 16 terabyte drive next month for the 48-layer flash. That's nuts. I'm excited. I want less power consumption and double the capacity.
Are you willing to pay $1,600 for it?
No, I don't have $1,600 to buy a drive.
It actually probably be more than that. It may be closer to like $2,500 would be my guess. Yeah.
At this point, I just want, desperation is a word I try to never use when discussing hardware. But, at this point, Intel Core i5 6600 Skylakes are $250 on Newegg, sold out on Amazon. We still haven't seen a Core i6700K Skylake for sale yet, which should sell for about $350. So I'm pacing myself on hardware purchases to upgrade my long-suffering Core i7-920 with a Skylake processor.
I think there's a lot of people in that same boat. It's very odd. Intel's never really kind of pointed us in the wrong direction like they did here. Well, they have, but they've always been very upfront about it, right? They say like if a 5960X was going to be available in 10 days, they would say that. Here, they very clearly told us it would be available immediately. And from what we're seeing, like apparently some system builders have it, and some guys that are like CyberPower or whatever that maybe sell fully ready PCs on Newegg and other places have that available. I did get sent a link yesterday that showed that you could buy it. It was there was a listing on Newegg, and it just said generic, and it had some weird serial number, and it said Core i7 6700K plus Z170 motherboard, and it didn't tell you what motherboard you were going to get, and it was a combo, and it was like $500 and something.
That's pretty good. I mean, that could be an Asus Z70, Z170A. It could be a MSI Z170 Crate.
Exactly. And so, it was interesting. I wouldn't buy that link, like not knowing what you're going to get. But it's interesting that somebody passed that over to us, that it existed at all. But no, Amazon doesn't have it. Newegg doesn't have it, and I get a lot of emails and a lot of Twitter messages and stuff, people talking about wanting to buy this part because the motherboards are widely available. And
it's gotta hurt right now to be a motherboard manufacturer. I mean, I'm looking at 3 different SKUs. It's crazy, like 3 different SKUs from Asus, MSI, Gigabyte. There's a lot of Z170 motherboards, and they're not. I mean, they're like, I was talking to you on the phone, before I got stuck in the airport. They're starting at $130, $140 for a Z170 motherboard. Nice motherboard, like a well-equipped motherboard. It's funny because I'm so used to seeing like, high-performance chip, $300 motherboard. I'm like, high-performance chip, $150 motherboard. This is my turf. I don't need, I don't need 802.11ac or vacuum tubes or ponies or armor plating or faux armor plating or anime characters on my motherboard. I just want the freaking Core i7 Skylake to ship on a non-secret link.
I can't imagine that it will be very much longer, honestly. It can't be. IDF starts on Tuesday. We're supposed to get a lot more information about the Skylake architecture next week as well as kind of more details on what the future of Skylake releases are going to be for notebooks or, the rest of the desktop lineup, I assume. But it will be the primary question, obviously, when I show up there on Monday. I'll be like, okay, cool. Yeah, this is great. Now, where can people buy the processors that we reviewed and talked about and recommended to people? Because that seems fairly important.
That badass processor everybody wants so badly. We should talk about, Scott wrote this up, photos and tests of Skylake Intel Core i7 6700K Delidded. Did you guys do this?
Oh, no. Heck no.
PC Watch did this.
Yeah.
You guys like processors too much to rip the skin off of the processor.
I try not to,
The second picture is my favorite picture of doing weird things with hardware in a really long time, where they're using the Vice method. So PC Watch is a Japanese computer hardware website. And if you scroll down, yeah, that's the shot with the with the little stubby 4-inch adjustable wrench. It's funny. So basically, if you scroll up one, you'll see the chip wedged in between. If you scroll up one picture on the page in PC Per, you see where they've wedged on the right side the PCB for the chip, on the left side the heatsink. This is the Vice method for deleading a chip, and you torque and pressure to pop the lid off the processor. Quote, I'm just going to quote Scott here. Despite how it looks, this is considered to be less traumatic than using a razor blade to cut the seal because human hands are not the most precise instruments, and a slight miss could damage the PCB. Just looking at that just freaks me out. It's a nice chip. I want it.
It's interesting to look at. If you scroll down through the photos, I think it's the last one that shows the actual. So that one actually shows the thinness of the substrate on the left there. That's Skylake. So they were able to make changes in power delivery and everything so that they could make it thinner, which that's obviously not very important for the desktop use case, but once you get into the mobile use case, that will be much more apparent. But then if you scroll down to the last one where they've actually removed everything and cleaned it off, you can see how small the actual Skylake die is.
Yeah.
Compared to everything else. So it's pretty cool. It's neat to see. I'm glad I wasn't the one that had to do it.
There's nothing more terrifying than having like one part and being like, well, let's just crack it open, see what's inside.
Yes, exactly, right. It's not like I can go out and buy more either. So
you could.
I didn't exactly want to do that. Right. Yeah. Eventually. But now I don't have to worry about it. It's like depending on iFixit to do that stuff, right? You guys take it apart and show me, and then I'll just believe you.
They're really good at that. And they document it well. I've been in the room where they do it. Just, you can smell brain power and manual dexterity. Jeremy Hellstrom up on PC Per. Is this the GTX 950? Video Cards has the latest rumorage of an impending release of a new GeForce GTX 950, possibly 950 Ti. There's a shot of a box, which may or may not be a GTX 950. Video Cards also reiterates their belief, Jeremy writes, quote, that the card will be 75% of a GM206 massive graphics processor with 768 CUDA cores and a 128-bit interface. So, what do you think it's going to sell for, assuming it's real?
I don't know. Like, if you look at where the 750 Ti today is like at $129, GTX 960 is at $199. So it assumes somewhere in between that.
Okay. That would be sensible.
I don't know if it's replacing the 750 Ti or if it's going to stay along with it. If it's replacing it, then you hope it's as close to 750 Ti as possible. If it's going to remain in the mix, then it will be somewhere in that gap. And honestly, once you get below $200, we're used to having more parts in that price bracket. So the fact that there's no real skew between 200 and 125 or 130 is kind of surprising. So it wouldn't surprise me now that they would maybe fill that gap with a different card.
Cool. Quick follow-up to the Intel SSD 750 story from earlier this year. Not the ridiculous performance on the Z170 chipset, but that an 800 gigabyte SKU has appeared. So when it released, as Alan noted, there was a 400 gigabyte and a 1.2 terabyte version, and now the 800 gigabyte version is showing up in the Skylake launch press materials. Not on the shelves yet, but that's a pretty, if it's showing up in Intel's press materials for other products, it's a strong sign that it should be showing up for sale. $700-ish is the estimated street price on that one.
Actually, I think yesterday, let me double check here. We actually saw it for sale on Newegg. He types, so it's $749 for the PCI Express version and $729 for the U.2 2.5-inch version. So both 800 gig models are showing up. That's like 93 cents per gigabyte or so, right in line with the 1.2 terabyte pricing. So now we see, like, this is something that we definitely just, kind of demanded of Intel. Like, look, you made a 400 and you made a 1.2 terabyte. There's this obvious gap in the middle that we think a lot of people will be interested in. That 400 gigs is kind of on the edge of being able to store all of your stuff. It's probably up there, but 800 gigs definitely is. If you're a kind of enthusiast gamer and PC builder, then getting an 800 gig model that you can kind of plow into everything and go through, I think would be awesome. And it's a long-term investment. That's something I think people need to understand as well. Is it is expensive, it's $750, but maybe even more so than a graphics card. Like, you're not going to expect performance on storage to change drastically in the next 3 or 4 years, where suddenly the Intel 750 series won't be competitive. Whereas on a graphics card, if you spend $700 in 3 or 4 years, that will not be nearly as competitive in the landscape that exists in the future. So I don't recommend everybody go spend $750 on storage, but it's pretty intriguing for us. Yeah. Like, we're actively building a new 4K capable, like, video editing rig, right? And this is the kind of drive that makes sense to go in something like that.
I have a crazy programmer friend who's been upgrading SSDs every 6 months or every major evolution to interface. And he's going to be all over this in a Z170 motherboard at any moment.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness. This episode of TWiCH is brought to you by Braintree. If you're working on a mobile app and searching for the right payments API, check out the Braintree V.0 SDK. With one simple integration, you get every way to pay. This is really cool. If you haven't seen it, if you have a website and you need to process online payments, there's a better way. If you build a mobile app and you need online payments, there's a better way. Braintree's crazy. It's 10 lines of code. Simple, secure payments. Code you can integrate in minutes. So we're not talking about days to integrate payments. We're talking about minutes. If you don't have time to deal with integrating the code in your system, call up Braintree and they'll handle the integration for you, walk you through it. It supports Android, iOS, JavaScript clients. They have SDKs in 7 languages. .NET, Node.js, Java, Perl, PHP, Python, Ruby. Elegant code, they say, with clear documentation, which, if you're a developer, is kind of nice to actually have documentation for the code you're dropping in. And let me say it one more time. 10 lines of in-app code. That's nothing. That's amazing. Braintree offers you an easy way to accept multiple payment types with one integration, quick, knowledgeable developer support. If you have a question, Apple Pay, PayPal, Bitcoin, Venmo, cards, and whatever's next, you can start accepting all those 10 lines of code and a simple integration. With the Braintree V.0 SDK, it's one small snippet of code, and you are set up in less than 10 minutes. To learn more and your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free, do us a favor, go to BraintreePayments.com/Twitch. Multiple payment platforms, one easy integration, BraintreePayments.com/Twitch. We want to thank Braintree Payments for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. Oh, goodness. Brace for impact. If you don't like graphics cards, you might want to consider fast forwarding for the next couple of minutes because there's a whole bunch of GPU news.
There's a lot. We'll go through some of it pretty quick because we do have a whole bunch of stuff on this docket here today.
It's been a big week. Zotac's GTX 970 Amp Extreme Core Edition review. Long card, long name, says Josh Walworth. Is it a better 970? He's a witty guy.
So I mean,
beautiful human being.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a like super. It's not a huge variance over what you would get on other 970 cards. The GTX 970 and the 980, that iteration of Maxwell is very much kind of like a defined thing at this point. This is just a look at a retail offering. It is a long graphics card, but it is a well built, well cooled card. It's got a triple fan design. And one of the things that I think that Josh pointed out last night when we talked about it, and that I also believe is important, is that it is a 2-slot card in the strictest definition of the word. It is not 2+, it's not 2, and just a little bit more, like if you put 2 of these cards next to each other in a motherboard, it's going to work, as opposed to, having one of the fan blades kind of rub up against the back plate of a card, for example. So Whether or not that means anything to everybody, right? If you're not doing SLI, you just never have to worry about that type of stuff. But it is a well-built card, a lot of airflow on it. It's got your standard triple display port, single HDMI, single DVI output configuration, so a lot of connectivity options. You can go look through the review if you want. Like Josh ran through a bunch of benchmarks. Everything looks good. It's about on par with what you would expect in terms of where the 970 falls in the grand scheme of things. And overall, like it's a good solid card, and it's priced like right there kind of with the reference designs too. It is, let me see, I'm looking forward. This card is $379. So it's maybe $30 or $40 more than kind of the baseline price of a GTX 970. So you're paying a little bit more for the extra cooling performance. You know, as Josh says, is it worth that $40 difference? Hard to say. The Zotac card sure does look a lot more attractive than the lightweight 970 card they looked at before. But the performance delta between the two is pretty small, which is definitely the case, right? Even if you have pre-overclocked cards, GPU boost tends to get you a lot of performance for free. So it got a silver award from Josh, but a good option for people that are still kind of looking in that $350 to $370 range for GPUs, as opposed to going way higher or way lower like the supposed 950 we talked about before.
It's a good thing. It's not a great thing. I don't want to sound mean. When I
that's
say
fair.
that.
No. Not everything can be great, Patrick, as it turns out.
But wouldn't it be nice if we were all great? If everything was awesome? I don't want to start singing that. Overclock any NVIDIA GPU on desktop and mobile with a new utility. I should probably say that at a speed that people can understand. If you've been, if you like 2PKAQWTUQM2Q7DJG, as Sebastian notices, likely not a real name, are looking for a better overclocking tools, you should check this out. Overclocking tools for NVIDIA GPUs suck. I made my own was the article on the WordPress blog for the 17-digit character formerly known as something, but it's pretty cool. It's a command line utility, basically. It's awesome. Quote, does this really allow...
command line overclocking utility. It's so weird.
Yeah,
I mean,
but...
Is this something you would rather interface with than one of the kind of, so the blog goes in to kind of complain about all the user interfaces for EVGA or MSI software are all like clunky and bad and overdrawn unnecessarily so. Is it something that you would really want to do over that? I don't know. I haven't tried the bench or the overclock utility yet. I'm curious, like, can you get it to like monitor and report frequency in kind of a real-time basis or something like that? I think the most interesting part for me is that he kind of fully reveals the NV API so that if you wanted to take his source code and build a UI around it or do something that was very specific to your needs, you could do that. You know, we talked about last night using that code to like maybe build like an auto overclocking tool that overclocks by 5 megahertz, runs a test, and then you run a command prompt and overclock by 5 megahertz again, run a test, and then see where it crashes and come back. And it might be useful for us for a couple of those purposes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice piece. If you're kind of curious about the underpinnings, reverse engineering, and I think that it's an interesting read. It's a dense read, but I also love the fact that the primary reason this person wrote this utility seems to be that they really found, well, quote, let's be honest here, the main contenders scratched out offenders would make the eyes of any sane person bleed instantly. Apparently, this person does not like armor-plated, bright red motherboards. I will say the Asus GPU tweak is pretty bizarre. They're all pretty bizarre. They're all
none of them are good, right? Probably, but they're all adequate. And it may be something where I'm just so used to using them that the user interface isn't confusing to me. Like I know what buttons I'm looking to click for immediately. But there are still instances where I'm looking for options in it to change something that I can't get. But those options tend to be things like changing what the overlay is showing you while you're in a game that, you know, this utility won't necessarily offer without some more work by open source communities, I guess. Maybe it'll get there.
Start,
maybe it'll be awesome. Yeah.
AMD Radeon R9 Fury unlocked as Fury X overclocked 1 gigahertz HBM. Sebastian wrote this up for PC Per. The steps include unlocking the compute units to enable Fury X grade performance, enabling the hotwire soldering pads, a 0.95 volt rail mod, and of course the trim pot / hotwire vGPU, vMem, VPLLs, VDD, CI mods. The results: GPU frequency of over 1,450 megahertz and HBM frequency of 1,000 megahertz. For the HBM, that's a 100% overclock. And if I'm not mistaken, that's a big mess of liquid nitrogen over there. Based on that first picture.
Yeah. There's a couple of things, right? So one is that some of the AMD Fury graphics cards can be software unlocked to be Fury X cards, which is interesting. That's something that existed many years ago, but we kind of thought we had moved past. This utility seems to say that that's not the case. I didn't actually try it on ours because we only have one Fury card in the office. I didn't want to brick it or anything. But it was also, it shows you like where, so you've got these video engines, and then you have these compute units inside of it. And, you know, there are 8 compute units that are disabled on a Fury compared to a Fury X. And on ours, it looked like we might be able to re-enable 7 of the 8 compute units, because it gives you like a little report first on what it thinks you might be able to do first. So it's pretty interesting that might be the case. And then the second part of the story was that, hey, as it turns out, if you just put a bunch of LN2 on this, you can overclock the memory, you can overclock the core, and you can get these huge performance boosts as well, which is great to see. Not useful for most of us, right? It's not applicable to nearly any of us, but it's always fun. It's always fun to watch people pour liquid nitrogen on computer parts and see what they get out of it. So,
kind of like watching dragsters race.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's what it is.
No, it is. It's just, you know, a lot less nitro-fueled methane funny car dragster mayhem. So, upcoming Oculus SDK 0.7 integrates direct driver mode from AMD and NVIDIA. Oculus sent out that email just a few days ago. New version of SDK will remove the simplistic extended mode that many users and developers implemented for a quick and dirty way of getting the Rift development kits up and running. So that'll be a nice feature. And something that was completely unhinged, you've got a shot of a 3DFX Voodoo 3 2000 PCI unboxing, which really freaked me out because this card, oh goodness, I have history with this card. It's about all I have it.
I have it right here in my hands.
Brand new. Did you find this in a closet of your house, or
no? Somebody actually sent it to me. And years ago somebody sent it to me, and I went back through email trying to find somebody what the name of the person was that had sent it, and I couldn't remember because I wanted to email them and apologize for the box getting ruined. We had it new in a box, still in the original shrink wrap with the rebate sticker on it, and we had a leak in the condo above us, and it dripped onto this box, so it got all warped and distorted. So I decided, okay, well, we need to take it out of the box. Let's make an event out of it. We actually hooked it up.
It's no longer mint.
Right, exactly. It's no longer an A-class product. It's probably C level, maybe even D. You know, if we go by the Beckett standards, of course. So we went through the unboxing and we opened it up. I thought that was fun. And then I was kind of like, well, maybe we can get it to work. So we brought up a motherboard with a PCI slot. So this card came out in 1999, and like 3DFX community fans kept drivers going until like 2007. So we installed Windows XP, which was a whole other headache on a system. Like we had to go find an optical drive. We had to find a disk to burn a Windows XP ISO to. We put this in there. We installed the driver. It worked. We loaded up Unreal Tournament, the original from 1999. Played it in Glide at 1024 by 768 and 800 by 600 resolutions, and it worked.
I was going to say 10 by 7.
It worked surprisingly well once we got to everything. Also, you've never seen Windows XP boot as fast as you have when it's on a 400 gig SSD running on Sandy Bridge hardware from 2011. So
that's really funny.
It's pretty neat. Like, if you're interested in it, I mean, it's like looking back in time, right? Just go check out the video that's in that story of the unboxing, and you'll see me open it up, go through like the demo disc, talk about the 16 megabyte frame buffer that it has, as opposed to the 12 gigabyte frame buffer that the Titan X has.
Right.
So 143 megahertz clock speed, I believe.
I'm envisioning this like, 1 frame per week render rate on Crysis.
I was going to try to see what else I could get to work because the driver has like different DirectX modes, but Steam doesn't install well in Windows XP. It just kept blue screening and crashing. I couldn't get Fraps to run. We thought somebody else recommended to me on Twitter, on YouTube today about like, hey, if you try GOG, good old games, maybe that client is more apt to support old hardware. But I think we showed enough what this card could do. I think we proved it wasn't DOA, and that's really what's important. That it worked.
Not dead yet. Yeah,
I mean, look, passively cooled, this tiny heatsink,
and it was so badass in the day.
It was.
I recently fired up a laptop with a 10x7 screen and 1024 by 768, and all I could think was, how did I work on these for so many years? They're just
we couldn't actually. One of the other things is we hooked the VGA port up to a Dell 30-inch 25 by 16 monitor, and the Windows XP installer only showed half the screen. So something in the scaler or something wasn't working. So we had to get a CRT out to finish it as well. And then of course, like if you're going to play Unreal Tournament from 1999, you play it on a CRT. So you're playing on a 75 hertz 1024 or 1280 by 1024 CRT, I think.
I love the fact that you had difficulty finding an optical drive, but you mentioned nothing about any difficulty finding a big CRT.
Well, you got to have one in the closet all the time, right? Like you've always got to have a CRT monitor.
I mean, I've got at least 3 Blu-ray drives and CD-ROM drives, within 5 feet of me. But the fact that you have a CRT,
I got 3 in my basement, big ones in the basement, like 21 inches. The only reason they're still there is because I don't feel like moving a 100-pound item.
I was going to say, you don't want to carry them out of the house.
Right. Correct. You are correct. We'll just stay there.
Oh, man. Scott Michaud's got a great article up on PC Per. What exactly is a draw call and what can it do? It's basically a function call for GPUs. If you want to learn more about what's going on, Mantle, Vulkan, and DirectX 12 all claim to reduce overhead and provide a staggering increase in draw calls. Essentially loading graphics cards with tasks, Scott writes, will take a drastic change in the new APIs. So DirectX 10 and earlier applications would assign attributes to what it is told is the global state of the graphics card. After everything is configured in BAM, one of the few draw functions is called, which queues the task in the graphics driver as a draw call. If you want to learn more about what's going on with DirectX 12 and Mantle and Vulkan and the future of how GPUs are going to be accessed, this is a very informative and very thoughtfully written read. So head on over to PC Per. Links in the show notes. Quote, we might not see the true benefit of these new APIs until they grow in popularity. They have the potential to simplify driver and game development, which the PC genuinely needs. It's some good stuff.
Yep.
Speaking of good stuff, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard us talk about them before. In fact, behind me right now,
as he reaches,
in a drawer that I cannot pull open backwards and upside down, I got a new bench. I'm very excited. iFixit.com. There's iFixit tools in that drawer that I can't open, which means I'll have to get a wrench to beat on the drawer to open it. But iFixit.com is the free online repair manual for everything. It's really simple. They just want stuff to run and work and stay out of landfills. And they're building a gigantic collection of manuals at iFixit.com. It's really cool. They have more than 10,000 repair guides for everything from electronics like your smartphone, tablet, and game console to home appliances, clothing, and even your bike. The bike ones are really good. They have foolproof instructions to fix your stuff. If you shattered your iPhone screen, need to repair the red ring of death on your Xbox. Some friends of mine have done that. Or swap the battery on your Galaxy S5. Shannon's about to do that. iFixit has got you covered with parts, tools, and repair guides. iFixit also makes the most trusted repair tools for consumer electronics, including the ProTech Toolkit. One I use pretty much every day. My wife's got one. We keep one here in the workbench. 70 tools to assist you with any mod, malfunction, or misfortune that comes your way. The toolkit is the gold standard for the electronics work, from garage hackers to the CIA and FBI. But more importantly, their unique tools are used by repair technicians everywhere. And I should say, when I say their tools, iFixit's unique tools. I don't know. Do we have a shot of that 54-bit driver kit? I literally use this probably every other day in my house because my children break things. In fact, the most recent thing I fixed with it was a scale that we're using to teach my son math. I've used it to fix the toilet. I probably mention that every time I do this. There's a 200-watt amp behind me I use to fix it. So that thing in the center there, the 54-bit driver kits, Phillips bits, Pentalobe bits, which are the stupid Apple proprietary screw, Torx security bits, tri-wing bits, the legendary triangle bit from McDonald's Toys. The driver's really nice. It's a swivel top driver. It's like a standard precision driver. The flex extension allows you to bend around things if you have some weird layouts inside of a piece of electronics, and you can stick it in the side of the precision driver and use it as a wrench. Static safe precision tweeters, static wrist strap if you actually use one, nylon spudgers, metal spudgers, plastic opening tools. It all comes in a really nice tool roll that A, keeps everything in one place, and B, makes it really obvious when something is missing. There's a lifetime warranty on this thing. It costs $64.95, and it's awesome. Doorknobs, eyeglasses, cabinet doors, sink fixtures, toilets, as I like to mention, children's toys, electronics, PC building. Best of all, there are thousands of free iFixit guides to help you put your tools to use. If you haven't gone there, do us a favor, go to ifixit.com/twit. With iFixit, you can fix it yourself. Visit ifixit.com/twit for more than 10,000 free step-by-step guides. iFixit also sells every part and tool you'll need. If you enter the code TWiCH, TWiCH, at checkout, you'll save $10 off any purchase of $50 or more. That is ifixit.com/twit, and use the code TWiCH to save yourself $10. We want to thank iFixit for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. So, good stuff.
Yep.
Also good stuff. Kind of interesting. ArsTechnica.com is right up on the Snapdragon 820. It's official, and they've got a pretty good discussion of what's going on with the the Snapdragon 820. They have an overview and a look at its GPU. So the 810 and the 808 are pretty much going to be the flagship parts you actually find in phones for the rest of 2015. Ars Technica notes that the 810 in particular, quote, has been problematic for the company. It has a gift for generating both heat and bad press. And while the Snapdragon 808 didn't suffer from the same problems, it was less of an improvement over older 800 series chips. Really good write-up by Andrew Cunningham over at Ars Technica.
It is.
Man. So much going on here. So it's got new GPUs, the Arduino 500 series, 40%. They're claiming like a 40% power reduction, and a 40% performance improvement. So that's going to be intense. All 500 series GPUs will support the same API, including OpenGL ES 3.1 with the Android extension pack. The low overhead Vulkan API when it ships or when it's ready. They also, Qualcomm, I guess, told Ars Technica that Adreno 400 series GPUs, I'm quoting here, will be able to support Vulkan 2 since they support OpenGL ES 3.1, but that the 500 series would be the company's first GPUs built with Vulkan in mind. So this is good. 4K display support, 4K 60 over HDMI 2.0, 4K 30 for wireless displays, direct stream video for wireless displays, Rec 2020 color gamut support. There's a lot going on here. I'm really curious about the Spectra ISP, enhanced demosaicing for new sub 1 micron image sensors, new hardware for radial noise reduction and color artifact correction. They've got a pretty interesting sort of side-by-side, and obviously it's a slide that's been reproduced and the picture's like a small corner of the slide, but essentially they're claiming better image quality, more accurate skin tones, nice pre and post processing, more power efficiency. So anything that makes photos look better. And they're claiming a better algorithm for dealing with low light video or night video. So there's a lot more information on the article that Andrew wrote up at arstechnica.com. We don't know when it's going to ship. We don't know when we'll know more about the CPU cores or the cellular connectivity. But at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, set up with radios to connect pretty much everywhere, since that seems to be the future of what's going on with phone radios at this point.
Right.
He says to expect Snapdragon 820 devices to show up in the first half of 2016, which means we'll probably have launch dates and information on phones at CES.
Yeah. I'm interested to see about the GPU is definitely the focus of this kind of information release that happened at SIGGRAPH. But I'm still very curious to learn about the Cryo CPU cores that will be their custom 64-bit designs as opposed to using ARM's off-the-shelf processors. Yeah. So that may be their biggest differentiating point too. So
it's going to be really interesting. I mean, I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious how this is how well this will do compared to the 810 when it gets to the real world. I'm curious. It's kind of a terminal state. Sorry, I'm like looking around on the screen because I managed to lose the rundown. It's the one downside is your monitors get bigger and you start running more windows. It's easier to lose things. If you're thinking about buying an Apple TV or an iPhone 6s, stop, wait, please, until September 9th. That's when we expect the new Apple TV announcement, and more important for most people, the iPhone 6s and the iPhone 6s Plus, and possibly a range of 6Cs or 6SCs. Galaxy Note 5 is coming August 21st. That's either people are either going to love this phone or hate this phone. Because it's a Note, so it's huge. It is the original phablet in a lot of ways, or the premier phablet.
What a title!
What a title! Verge says it's going to have the same octa-core Samsung Exynos processor as the S6 with 4 gigabytes of RAM, 32 or 64 gigabytes of storage. No 128 gigabyte option, which I thought was odd. Wireless charging support, quick charging, 3,000 milliamp hour battery, which I think it could be bigger for a phone with a screen of that size. Same 16 megapixel camera as the S6, 5.7 inch Super AMO LED display with the same quad HD resolution. Same size as the Note 3 and Note 4, probably because anything bigger than 5.7 inches gets really difficult to fit in a pocket. So
I think it's a good mix of making. I had a Note 4 for a while, and I think it's a good size. Like, it's not stupid big, although a lot of people will argue that it is. But yeah, I wouldn't go bigger at this point. I'd like to try it out, so we'll see.
It's looking kind of gold. I think gold is the new black as far as Samsung is concerned. Nice. S6 Edge. That's the other big news that kind of came out yesterday. The S6 Edge Plus will be arriving with a 5.7 inch QHD screen. Again, an octa-core chip. Essentially, the shiny round. I don't really understand the Edge phones, but a couple people I know have them and don't hate them, which is, I guess, a glowing endorsement. Boy Genius Report says that the Samsung Gear will be coming soon. The Samsung's teasing a gorgeous round Apple Watch. I don't know if we have the link to the Boy Genius Report, but so there was the Gear S, which was the giant wraparound wristband, and then the Apple Watch came out. Boy Genius Report says, and then lo and behold, Samsung's new smartwatch features a home screen with watch icons that look an awful lot like the Apple Watch's screens. Boy Genius Report says they expect to learn more about the Samsung Gear S2 when the company fully reveals it at IFA in Berlin.
Oh, right.
So we will keep an eye on that one. I don't know if, Xiaomi started to show up in a big way at CES in the last couple of years. I really want to get my grubby little paws on one of these. I'm still trying to figure out if they're actually going to be sold in the United States. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 2 octa-core Full HD for $124.
Wow.
Yeah.
They never really did start selling here in the U.S., did they?
No.
Because we got in, they were the first one to have one of the latest Tegra devices. We got that in, but we had to order it in from China, obviously, as you do.
As one does.
Yeah, as you tend to do with those types of things. This looks pretty cool. The Redmi. Even though it's yellow, it's called the Redmi. Sure. Redmi Note 2, Note 2, Note 2 Prime. Huh.
Yeah. 64-bit octa-core Helio processor, 5.5-inch display, 13-megapixel rear camera made by Samsung, dual SIM LTE support, 2 gigs of RAM, another 16 or 32 gigabytes of internal storage, 3,060 milliamp hour battery, quick charge 2.0 support, 802.11ac Wi-Fi, runs MIUI 7 on Android 5.0 Lollipop. That's pretty sick. 32 gigabyte model is $140. I expect all of these are going to go into China and India, which is kind of the place where Chinese manufacturers go to take names and kick ass in the battle with Apple and Samsung. Mostly the battle with Samsung. It's first of all, the one last thing I want to show, the next link on there. The links on all the Xiaomi new products, if you can scroll down a little bit, portable routers aren't nearly as popular as they were, but you want to see some really nice design. Take a look at the My Wi-Fi Nano. That is it's
That looks familiar.
And they sell it with a matching portable battery pack. So
weird.
I just thought that was really pretty. And a really nice piece. And if you scroll down, they're actually showing the innards on that one. So I thought that was a pretty interesting, just a nice looking router.
Huh. Interesting.
We've talked occasionally. It's not something we get into. Something we talk about a lot on Tech Thing every so often. The idea of Android fragmentation. So OpenSignal is an Android application that helps you find the best network in your area. And they came out with their Android fragmentation visualized graph just last week, maybe. We were talking about it on Tech Thing. Came out, I think, while we were down at DEF CON. They pulled the story up. That is what 24,093 distinct Android devices look like. That's up from 18,796 Android devices last year. They surveyed 682,000 devices running their software. 37.8% of those devices are Samsung, for a total of 1,294 device brands. They started doing this in 2012.
It's a really cool graph. It's a really interesting way of presenting the data too.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when you start looking at it. With that transition you just saw was the difference between August 2014 and August 2015. What's kind of crazy, if you scroll down a little bit, right? The Galaxy S3, the Galaxy S5, the Galaxy S4 are probably the biggest single phones. So that, the blue is Samsung, the bright pink is LGE, and as you work across Sony and then Motorola, then as you scroll down, Lenovo, Huawei, Asus, HTC, Verizon, Google, ZTE, and then it just kind of gets nuts as you keep scrolling down there. But the thing that really blew my mind, Android operating system fragmentation, which is the next visual graph down. The white line across the middle is the market share of the leading API at any given time. So if you keep going, stop, right? Go back a couple there. Perfect, Burke. Right there, that is Android 4.2, 4.3, and then the large blue stripe at the right is 4.4. It's crazy because 5.0 and 5.1 are those last two little blips at the far side. So you're looking at yeah.
Well, damn.
Possibly single digits certainly single digits for 5.1 and probably single digits for all 5.0, 5.1. And it brings the point. Ars Technica did another really good Ars Technica article this week where they basically talked about in looking at stage fright, which if you haven't heard about it, it's a Android targeted hack that if you download an MMS video on an unpatched phone, gives them the ability to run code, execute code, malicious code on your phone. It's pretty nasty. It affects pretty much all versions of Android. And part of the reason why like 48+% of the Android phones are running variations of KitKat 4. something is because, it goes from sort of Google/Android to the OEMs to the carriers. And a lot of times the carriers just could care less. if the phone's more than 2 years old, the likelihood that your carrier cares about it at all is difficult. You look at it. There's some graph, a couple of pie charts. 85% of iOS devices are running iOS 8, 13% are running iOS 7, 2% are running earlier versions. 5.1 Lollipop is 2.6% of devices they surveyed. 5.0 is 15.5%. So Lollipop's closing in on 20% of the devices out there. But in terms of KitKat, it's 28, 68. Almost 70% of devices out there are running some flavor of KitKat or Jelly Bean. KitKat's 40%, Jelly Bean's another. Math is hard. 32%. So it's amazing how dated a lot of them are. The other thing it's amazing when you start thinking about if you are designing an application, you want it to work on the majority of Android devices. They have a screen size fragmentation chart. Which is crazy when you look at what's going on here. If you scroll down the boxes, those are all the different screen sizes overlaid on each other.
It puts things in perspective for sure. Like,
yeah.
The fact that it's all mouse over interactable is pretty impressive too.
It's a beautiful. I should send that a tweet complimenting it. It's a beautiful piece of information design from OpenSignal, and it's a fascinating read. And it's a really fascinating read. We should probably cut it there because we've been running over an hour. We will have a pile of viewer questions next week to kind of make up for it. But there's a lot going on this week in hardware. I haven't even talked about DEF CON, people hacking
I don't know if
GPSs with the Hack RF1.
Next week's going to be bad too. Next week's IDF.
Oh, goodness.
I have meetings with Intel and a bunch of motherboard guys and AMD, of course, too, and ARM and Qualcomm all next week. And yeah, there's a couple of hardware releases that will be up too. So
1 or 2.
It'll be intriguing.
And someday I will be able to buy my Skylake processor.
I'm going to guess next week. I don't know. I'm just making that up. I don't know.
You don't know. You're just teasing me.
I don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, PCPro.com is the place to find Ryan Shrout. You can find me at TechThing, TEKTHING, and at Ryan Shrout and at Patrick Norton on the Twitters. We want to thank you so much for listening to This Week in Computer Hardware. If this is your first episode, go to twit.tv/Twitch to find all our previous episodes and for information on how to subscribe and to make sure the podcast is delivered to your inbox each and every week on your favorite podcatcher. With that, I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
We'll see you next week on Twitch.